Olympic fight sparks suspension. Pierre Crinon banned from Olympic tournament after fight with Canada's Tom Wilson. The France Olympic ice hockey team will be without defenseman Pierre Crinon for the remainder of the Milan Cortina Winter Games after the French Olympic Ice Hockey Federation handed him a tournament suspension Monday. The disciplinary action stems from a heated altercation with Tom Wilson of Canada during Sunday's group stage matchup. Now it's time to go in detail and uncover the full story in today's AI podcast.
So, picture this. You're at the Milan Cortina Winter Games. You're in the arena, it's cold, but the energy, it's not that, hopeful Olympic buzz.
Right. It's not the fun part.
No, it's frantic. It's kind of angry. It's that specific chaotic feeling you get when a game has just gone completely off the rails.
And this one was a blowout. We're talking 10-2.
Exactly. Tempers weren't just fraying, they were boiling over.
Which happens in a sport like ice hockey. When the score gets that lopsided, the game, it changes. It stops being about strategy and starts being about frustration and, well, pride.
And that's our jumping off point today. Because that frustration, it exploded into a brawl between France and Canada. But, and this is the really interesting part, our deep dive today isn't really about the fight itself.
Yeah, I mean, fights happen in hockey. That would be a pretty short segment.
It would be, wouldn't it? The real story is what happened after. We're digging into the case of French defenseman Pierre Crinon.
It's such a fascinating situation. It's about sportsmanship, discipline, and this really, really rare case where a team punishes itself more than the actual league or the tournament officials did.
It's almost unheard of. Usually the team is fighting for the player, trying to get the suspension reduced.
Right, you've got lawyers and GMs arguing their case. Here, the French Federation just stepped in and said, nope, he's out.
So our mission today is to figure out why. Why would a team that's already struggling, and they are struggling badly, voluntarily ban one of its own guys when the officials actually cleared him to play?
It feels completely counterintuitive, and it really brings up this big question about the values of wearing your country's jersey versus, the simple need to win.
And we're looking at a bunch of reports on that France-Canada match, especially the fight with Tom Wilson, and then the official statement from the French Federation that came out after.
Right.
So let's set the scene. Context is everything. It's the third period, 6.59 left on the clock.
And if you're a French player, you are just miserable. Absolutely miserable.
The scoreboard says Canada 10, France 2.
It's demoralizing. A 10-2 game is over. It's been over for a while. You're just waiting for the buzzer.
It's garbage time.
It is, but it's dangerous garbage time. The whole tension of the game shifts. Canada just wants to get out of there without anyone getting hurt.
Right, they're thinking about the next round.
But France, they're dealing with humiliation, they're embarrassed, they're frustrated, and they are full of adrenaline with nowhere productive to put it. That is a volatile mix.
And that's when the fuse gets lit. We have Pierre Crinon, the French defenseman. The game's over, and he makes a move on one of Canada's biggest stars, Nathan MacKinnon.
And that's key context, right? For anyone who doesn't follow the NHL, MacKinnon isn't just some guy. He's one of the best players in the world. A superstar.
So hitting him is a statement.
A huge statement. And the reports all describe it as a high hit.
Which means?
It usually means contact with the head or neck area. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
But to do that to a star player when the score is 10-2?
You're breaking the code.
Oh, you are absolutely breaking the unwritten code of hockey. You don't take cheap shots at the stars, especially when the game is out of reach. It's seen as having no class.
Which explains what happened next. Tom Wilson is on the ice for Canada, and he has a bit of a reputation himself.
Oh, yes. Wilson is a very skilled player, but he's also known as an enforcer, a protector. His job in moments like that is to make sure nobody takes liberties with his teammates.
So he sees the hit on MacKinnon.
And he doesn't hesitate for a second. It's instantaneous. His star player takes a questionable hit, and he steps in to retaliate. That's his job description. He's policing the game.
And then chaos. They square off right near the French goal.
Yeah.
And here's a detail I found surprising. Crinon actually gave an upper hand pretty quick.
He did, which is saying something. Wilson is a tough guy. But the report says Crinon forced him face first onto the ice.
That's a vivid image.
It is. And even after the officials get in there and separate them, the adrenaline is still pumping. Wilson tries to get back at him. There's more pushing, more shoving. It took a minute to get it all under control.
Okay, so the refs start handing out penalties. And they threw the book at him, right?
They did. 5-minute major penalties for fighting for both guys. And they both got game misconducts.
Let's break that down. A game misconduct means What exactly?
You're done for the night, immediate ejection. You leave the ice, you go to the locker room, your game is over.
So they're kicked out. Standard stuff for a fight like that. But then your mind immediately goes to the next game. The big question is always, am I suspended?
Exactly. The IIHF, the International Ice Hockey Federation, they have some pretty strict rules. Everyone's waiting for the official word.
And this is where it gets weird. We've got a report from Elliot Friedman at Sportsnet. What did he find out?
Friedman reported that, amazingly, the incident did not trigger an automatic suspension under IIHF rules.
Wait, really? After all that?
Yeah.
A high hit, a fight, a face-first takedown.
Yeah. The officials on the ice dealt with it, they ejected them, and the IIHF decided that was enough. They basically said, you served your time by missing the last 7 minutes of the game. Both Crinon and Wilson were cleared to play.
So if you're on the French coaching staff, you're breathing a massive sigh of relief.
You'd think so. You lost badly, you're embarrassed, but hey, at least you have your defenseman for the next game, which is a must-win.
You take the administrative win and you move on.
But that is not what happened. This is where the French Federation threw that huge curveball.
They decided to be the judge and jury for their own player.
They took a much, much stricter approach than the actual governing body. They put out a statement, and the language it's really telling. They didn't talk about rules or regulations. They talked about values.
Values. That word always means someone's in trouble.
They talked about the values of every player wearing the French national team jersey. They mentioned the obligation to be a role model, especially at the Olympics. It's like they were saying, the IIHF says you can play, but we say you didn't act like an Olympian.
And it wasn't just the fight, was it? There was another detail, something Crinon did on his way out, that really seemed to be the nail in the coffin.
This is the crucial part. If it was just the fight, maybe they let it go. Heat of the moment, frustration boiling over, all that.
Right.
But as Crinon was leaving the ice after being ejected, he apparently taunted the Canadian fans in the crowd.
Oof. Okay, let's sit with that for a second.
Yeah.
You're losing 10-2. You just got in a fight that you started with a questionable hit. You're being kicked out of the game. And your choice is to start yelling at the fans of the team that just destroyed you.
To put it politely, it is not a good look.
That's the definition of a sore loser.
It's a total lack of composure. And for the Federation, that specific act, taunting the crowd, was the thing that crossed the line. The Olympics markets itself as being about sportsmanship. That act just screams lack of discipline.
It's like the fight was the crime, but the taunting showed he wasn't sorry. It was the attitude.
Exactly. It showed he wasn't focused on the right things.
So what was the final verdict from the French Federation?
They dropped the hammer. They suspended Pierre Crinon for the remainder of the tournament. Not one game, the whole thing. No matter how far they go, he's done. He's watching from the press box.
That's her honor. That is a self-inflicted wound. It's like a parent grounding their kid even though the school said it was okay.
That's a perfect analogy. And to get the full weight of that decision, you have to look at where France is in the tournament. They're not exactly cruising.
No, the stats here look pretty grim.
France is sitting at 0-3. They haven't won a single game.
They're desperate.
Desperate is the word. They have a critical qualification round game against Germany on Tuesday.
So it's an elimination game?
Essentially, yeah. If they beat Germany, they move on to play Slovakia. The dream is technically still alive.
But they've just chosen to go into that do-or-die game without one of their regular defensemen.
Yes. They are shorthanded on defense by their own choice at the most critical moment of their tournament. They have actively made it harder for themselves to win.
This is what's so compelling. In sports, winning is supposed to be everything. We see teams bend the rules, make excuses, anything to keep a key player in the lineup.
Right, we'll handle it internally.
Yeah, but here France is basically saying, no, the reputation of this jersey matters more than beating Germany.
It's a rare example of a team policing itself more strictly than the people in charge. It feels like something from a different era of the Olympics, you know?
Yeah.
This old school idea of honor.
It feels almost quaint, but also really bold.
It's a huge gamble. Think about that locker room. Morale is already rock bottom after a 10-2 loss. Now your own management makes your team weaker for the next game. Do you respect the stand, or are you just thinking, come on, we need all the help we can get?
That's a great point. It could unite them, or it could just totally deflate them.
And remember, the trigger was the conduct, the taunting. The Federation's message is that how you lose matters.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Because at 10-2, you've lost. The game is gone. The only question left is, do you lose with dignity, Or do you lose while screaming at the fans?
And at the Olympics, the whole world is watching. The French Federation decided that the image of their player mocking fans was more damaging than losing a hockey game. They protected the brand, not the box score.
It's a fascinating trade-off. Reputation over roster strength. Values over victory.
It really is, and it all comes back to that one moment. If Crinon just swallows his pride, skates to the bench, he's playing against Germany. But that one lapse, the hit, the fight, and especially the taunt, it cost him his Olympic Games.
And it wasn't even the ref who did it. It was his own team.
That's the part that sticks with you. The IIHF said, you're good. The French Federation said, you're gone.
So let's zoom out. Why should someone listening care about this?
I think it matters because it forces us to ask what we actually value in sports.
Right.
We always hear about players being role models, but it's usually just talk.
Right. It's a buzzword.
It is. But here, an organization actually sacrificed a competitive advantage to uphold that standard. It came with a real tangible cost to their chances of winning.
They put their money where their mouth is. Or their defenseman in the press box, I guess.
Exactly. It says the jersey represents something bigger than the final score. It's a reminder that sports are supposed to be about character, not just results.
And it sends a message to every other player in their system.
Oh, without a doubt. The line has been drawn very clearly. You represent the nation first. If you can't control yourself, you don't get to wear the jersey.
So France goes into this game against Germany shorthanded. The odds are against them, but maybe in a weird way, they've reclaimed some dignity with this decision.
That has to be the hope. They might lose the game, but they're trying to save their soul, so to speak.
We'll see how they do. But for Pierre Crinon, his Olympics are over.
A very harsh lesson.
Absolutely. So as we wrap this up, we want to leave you with a final thought. It's easy for us to sit here and say, good for them, sportsmanship matters. But put yourself in the shoes of that coach or those other players.
Right. In a high-stakes competition like the Olympics, where winning is what people remember, is it admirable or is it actually foolish for a team to handicap itself to prove a point about values?
At what point does being a role model conflict with your job, which is to put the best possible team on the ice? If they lose to Germany by 1 goal on a play that Crinon might have stopped, was it worth it?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? The moral high ground doesn't usually come with a medal.
Something to chew on.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.
Okay, one question for you. How much impact could Crinon's suspension have on France's chances against Germany and potentially Slovakia? And does removing a key defenseman hurt team morale more than it protects team values? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.